Welcome to Pivot, a podcast hosted by Katie Day, where we find out how business owners have been pivoting their businesses to stay relevant and successful.
Hey guys, what's going on? Katie Day with the Move Me to Texas team with Coldwell Banker Realty in Houston, Texas. Today I'm joined by my good friend Jeff Cohen, Cohen Nation out of New York City. Jeff, what's going on? How are you today?
I'm doing great. I love that you said Cohenation. But it's so funny. I was ready to get rid of my Instagram handle, and then everybody I know keeps calling me Cohenation, so I left the Cohenation Instagram handle because everybody knows me by that now.
Yeah. So Jeff and I actually met at a Tom Ferry conference last year. And yeah, I don't know. I guess when we all started following each other on Instagram, somehow, you know, one of the evenings out, we all just started calling each other by our Instagram handles. So yeah, Cohen Nation is definitely your name to the group of our friends in the Tom Ferry ecosystem. So I don't know, man. I like it.
That's funny. So yeah, it's great. Yeah. How's everything going?
Everything's going well. We've been staying busy down here. Been working a lot. So yeah, just staying home and then working. But I wanted to obviously talk to you. I know because, you know, things in New York have been you know, kind of wild over the past now almost 6 months, right? And I know you've been in and out of the city over the past 6 months, you know, and things have been kind of all over the place there as far as, you know, being able to work and what buildings are letting people in and stuff like that. But I guess before we kind of dive into all of that and this year, let's talk a little bit kind of about, I guess, how you got into real estate and where you got to where you are today.
Sure. Yeah, I actually, so my background is I went to school for, you know, I got my MBA in accounting and management. You know, accounting background, kind of worked through corporate America. And then I found myself in a corporate finance position. And part of that was like negotiating these big corporate deals. And I would save, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, on one deal. And you get a little pat on the back and you're like, wait a minute, like something's off here. And yeah. I was just wondering, you know, I realized it wasn't something I went to school for, but I kept, you know, negotiating all these deals and being very successful at it. And everybody was kind of seeking me out, you know, to help them with their deals. And so I was wondering, you know, well, how do I make money on this newfound skill set?
Yeah.
And so I realized, you know, you're walking in Manhattan, you know, you're always looking up, you're like curious what people are living like. And I decided to make a leap into real estate and use that skill set in real estate.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, and I think that it does get frustrating in corporate America or in corporate, you know, and that's kind of how I got into real estate was that I was, you know, working a lot, right. And doing, you know, saving our company money and things like that. And they're just like, great job. Thank you very much. You know, and you're like, huh, okay. You know, so I think that's something that's really cool about real estate is that you can see as you work harder, you know, you can obviously see your income potential also increasing, which is always nice. So as far as like, I know obviously you're in New York now. Have you always been in New York?
Yeah, I mean, ever since, I grew up in a place called Poughkeepsie, New York, which is about 2 hours north of the city. But I've always been in New York State my whole life. And I moved down to Manhattan, you know, probably 20 years ago and have lived there ever since. Lived in Murray Hill for about 15 years. And I've been in Sutton Place, Midtown East for the last 6 or 7.
Yeah. So are you a Yankees or a Mets fan?
Oh, just that word. Yeah, no, I'm a Mets fan.
Okay.
So as a Mets fan, you're just you know, actually I don't mind the Yankees team. It's more of the my friends that, you know, make comments my whole life. So you tend to hate more of the fan side than you do the actual team. But,
yeah, no, I hear you on that. I mean, and I grew up in Maryland. So like I had friends that were Yankees fans growing up and I'm like, you know, do you have family in New York? Do you know someone in New York? And it wasn't. It was just because like they were good. They liked them, you know, and so I feel you on that.
Yeah, but definitely a Mets fan. And, you know, I'm actually, you know, sitting, you know, now that sports are kind of back with football and baseball and everything. And even though the Mets aren't doing good, I'll still, watch the game a couple times a week and, just listen to it while I'm doing some work or something like that. So I'm definitely glad that sports are back.
Yeah, I am as well.
They're huge in New York. For
sure. Cool. So obviously, this year has been, pretty, I guess, unexpected, as far as kind of everything that's happened and all of the stay-at-home orders and things like that. So I guess what would you say would be the biggest positive that you've seen this year in 2020?
That's a really good question. I love that question because, I think when you get into the COVID situation, everybody's thinking about like what happened, how bad things were. And so to put a positive spin on it, I'd say that, really, I would call it the time for building relationships for me anyhow. And so it's whether it's reconnecting, having a Zoom with some college friends that I hadn't seen in, a long time, or, calling each of my former clients and just touching base, checking in with them, seeing how they're doing, or, calling people, I just bought an apartment in the city and calling people that I know and, maybe ordering them bagels or getting them something that they need if they can't get out. So, it's been just going deep on, personal relationships and just, really connecting with people, having, calls with fellow real estate agents and connecting with the wolf pack and and connecting with the real estate industry as well. So I would just say it's all about those relationships, cultivating them, reconnecting, going deeper, where, otherwise you'd be so busy that you don't really have that time to get that one-on-one connection. And it just afforded you some time to do that.
Yeah.
So that was great.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. I think it was cool being able to call and catch up with people or hop on a Zoom happy hour or something like that. Cause it's like people that like I hadn't talked to in so long and they're also at home, so it's like everyone had the time to kind of get back to that. And it was nice because I feel like, yeah, as you said, like everyone just gets so busy and it kind of just falls, to the side. So I'm very thankful for that. I'm honestly surprised that you didn't bring up the amount of meats that you were smoking in the green egg, though. I figured that would have been the biggest positive in your life over the past few months.
I love that. Yeah, I bought a smoker right when COVID hit. We kind of exited the city for a little bit, and we didn't know what was going on. So I went up to Poughkeepsie with my parents, and they were in Florida, so we had the house to ourselves. And I decided what better to do than get a smoker. So I started smoking all of these meats, and I have the best wings ever. So at some point I'll have to make them for you, but they're just so good, and it was really exciting.
It was
just thinking about it's making me hungry.
Well, so it was always like I would hop on my phone, in the middle of the day and just like I'd be eating lunch or grabbing a snack or something, and I would like see it and I'm like, oh man, and just the updates of like what was happening. I'm like, it was definitely a highlight of my day, and I didn't even get to eat them. So there's that.
That's great.
Yeah. So obviously, as I said, like I know that New York has had a little bit more restrictions as far as like the stay-at-home orders, and the reopening has definitely been a lot more I guess graduated and a little bit slower than it has in Texas. I know a lot of restaurants are still doing outside dining and things like that up there, where here they're anywhere between 25 to 75% open. So I guess, what did you feel like were things that were very helpful for you to kind of pivot your business when, entire buildings were shut down and not allowing, any people outside of residents? Like, I mean, I just know that things that I had heard on the news and things like that were that like, the city was completely shut down, which I know is kind of true, kind of not true. So I guess walk us through kind of how things were in New York over the past few months.
Yeah, it was, I think like everybody else at the beginning phase, it's kind of like, wait, what's going on? You're kind of getting your bearings, trying to figure out, it took a minute to figure out, okay, well, like, should I stay in the city? Should I get out of the city? Should I, what's going on? how are the restaurants going to survive? Everything was completely shut down, and you go from one day being super busy to the next, completely silent. And in a city that never sleeps, it's kind of even more, shocking to see that happen. And so it was, it took a second. It's kind of like you get knocked, you kind of take a step back, you get your bearings, and then you go forward again. So it was a little bit difficult. Everything was shut down, and because it's more vertical living in terms of residential side of things, everybody who was in the buildings completely shut down because they didn't want to let people in and out and expose people. And restaurants were suffering, they couldn't let people in. And so it was definitely a challenge initially, but then slowly you see people kind of figure things out. And they say, okay, wait, we can pivot to outdoor dining. We can pivot to, highlighting restaurants and, helping out the local community and just putting your face out there, and people get to know you in the process. So, for example, I did like an interview, a Zoom interview with like one of the biggest bagel shops in Manhattan, and just did an interview on that, gave away some gift cards. And so it was things like that where you're just trying to help out the local community, promote them, get your name out there in the process. And it was just about kind of helping out everybody. So in terms of pivoting my business, it was more, like I said earlier, it was all about relationships and building those relationships. And so I just bought an apartment in the city myself. And so even though I was renovating and that got shut down, and I had no place to live, but, I was still, I literally bought people bagels or toilet paper or whatever they needed, so that, when we come out of this, they're never going to forget who helped them out and who offered a helping hand. And it was out of a genuine, like, wanting to help people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I think that was the biggest way that I pivoted my business, because it was going from, being very busy to completely shut down, like most people.
Yeah. That was another post of yours that I was just like so hungry, because I'm sensing a common theme here between our social media, interactions over the past few months. Is like you're posting tons of great food and, things like that. And I'm just over here like, man, I'm eating, my meal prep and sad. So
I'll send you some really good cookies. Just don't tell your trainer.
He might hear this. That's I'm not going to eat them. I'll throw them away, Sean. I promise. No. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that was something that we definitely wanted to try to do as well, was highlight as many local businesses as possible, because they were, just trying to figure out what they could do to keep their doors open, and the outdoor dining, in New York, I think, was very successful. I know that I've seen a lot of pictures from you and other people I know in the city that, like, there are streets that are shut down, or they, basically took up the sidewalk and like allowed some restaurants to expand their patio space to be able to have, more seating and things like that. But it's been great to see, from social and stuff like that, like how resilient New York is. And everything that, like, how everyone's come together as a community, even though it's such a large city, I think is so.
Yeah, I think it takes some difficult times for people to come together. And I definitely saw that in New York, and it's just amazing how resilient the city is. And, you hear a lot of things on the news about people leaving and things happening, but, I think it's the connection that people have to the city and the excitement that the city brings. I think that, things are a little bit, in a downward trend at the moment, but it's just, I see people eating out all the time. They have outdoor dining, like you said. They actually block off a lot of the streets where people used to park. So, and they build stations for people to have some outdoor dining areas. And so you see a lot of that in the city, and, it's all over Manhattan, and you see people out enjoying themselves. And so it's good to see that happening again.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's something, like, I think that I think that there is some, migration towards suburbs, but I don't know, we've seen it some in Houston, we've seen it in DC, we've seen it in New York, some, but I'm like, in major cities like New York, like not every single corporation is going to say, okay, great, everyone can work from home. There's still going to be corporations that are, headquartered in major cities that will expect people to be there, the majority of the time, right? So it's not going to work for everyone to move out to, a burb of New York or Connecticut or something like that.
Yeah, and even if they do, even if it's not work driven, I mean, they go out, they enjoy the country for a bit, and then they're stir crazy, and they're like, all right, well, wait, what do you mean I can't order in from my favorite place anymore? Or, I can't meet up with my friends for a drink somewhere, or, so it's just, I think people have that realization. So yeah, they might stay away for a little bit, but New York is so much fun. There's so many people, there's so much to do. There's so much excitement. And I think that, the restaurants alone, I mean, is just a reason to be there. The food is so great that, I mean, it's just so exciting. I love it. I'm all in. I just bought a place myself. If you're looking to invest and you want a good deal, now's the time to do it. So I think it's just an exciting time for New York.
Yeah,
despite
for sure.
what you might see on the news.
So yeah, with that being said, if someone was looking to, buy in New York, in the city, or invest or something like that, where could they find you online or on social media?
So you could find me on my website, jcny.com. That's Jeff Cohen, New York. Or you can find me on Instagram, which is where I usually am, as you know. You can reach me at The Cohen Nation. That's TheCohen, Cohen Nation. And so I'm usually on Instagram. So if you wanted to reach out just to say hi, ask me any questions, need any advice or anything, feel free to message me and I'll get back to you right away. Awesome.
Cool, Jeff. Well, I appreciate you taking some time to chat today. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on today, or anything else that you wanted to add?
Just that I think you're awesome. I love all your posts. I think you're doing a great job in Houston, and I keep up to date with you all the time. So you're doing a fantastic job. I love it.
Thanks, friend.
If anybody out there has anybody who's thinking about moving to New York, it's one of the safest places right now in terms of COVID. And if you're looking to get a good deal on something for a long-term play, in the history of New York City, over the average of 5 years, if you've bought in New York over a 5-year period, you've made great money, way over renting. So if you're looking for a spot, feel free to reach out to me and I will be glad to help.
Cool. Well, thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat. And I'm excited to hear the progress of your new place.
I know. I can't wait for it to be done, and I will definitely post some pictures when it's ready to go.
All right, man. Cool. Well, I appreciate you.
All right.
I'll talk to you later.
See you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Pivot. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and follow Katie on social media at MoveMe2TX to stay up to date in all things real estate.